Welcome to MTM Travel, where Mark is back from Asia, his first time there. I don't know if the continent will ever recover.
I mean, I was barely there too because everything kind of fell apart in the beginning. It was a short trip to start with, and it got even shorter thanks to Singapore Airlines. But I know we'll talk about all that. And then made it to the Sunday night football game last night for the Lions, which I was impressed with myself. That landed at midnight Saturday night or early Sunday morning, and then went to the game Sunday evening. I was glad it got flexed to evening. I don't know if I could have made the 1 o'clock without dying.
Yeah, it's like 8 a.m. in your brain, right? If you're going to the night game. By the way, not put on waivers yet. Still here for the podcast. So thank you, Shawn, for last week. Mark, I said I didn't want Shawn to put me on waivers so I could be here for this episode. And I'm sick too, but I want to talk. I want to hear about this trip. So I'm here.
Yeah, we could use you as cornerback at the Lions. We lost another one yesterday,
Oh my
so
gosh.
we're on our fifth one. I don't know, it's crazy, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
First,
Thank you.
first seed ever. So I'm happy for you.
Yes, yeah, I'm excited. We'll get it would have sucked because we lose that game, 14 wins, and we go to on the road for the playoffs. I wouldn't get any playoff tickets or anything like that. So my plan is to hopefully we make it to the NFC Championship game. We got to win one game before that, and then I'm going to fly my dad in and surprise him. We're doing our Christmas this weekend, so that'll be like he's not even supposed to get a gift because I paid for him to stay at the Conrad Orlando, and that was like the gift. But I'm going to do that since he hasn't been to a game or anything, and fly him in for that game. So it should be a lot of fun. Although
Hey, he brought the cooler to the Conrad Orlando.
Yeah.
So wasn't that his?
that's
What
true.
he contributed?
He hooked me up with Miller Lights.
Hey, it's a good thing none of our relatives listen to this podcast, huh? Would ruin the surprise.
I think my parents used to. I don't know if they still do.
Well, you know what
Probably.
they don't have in Asia, Mark, is football, American football. They don't play it there.
I watched
They
it
play
there.
this-
I watched it.
Did you?
Yeah.
It reminds me, I used to do that traveling, just trying to find games back in the day. Now you can find the NFL everywhere, but back then it was more difficult to do. But you have so much to talk about with your trip. Crazy thing happened at the beginning, right? I mean, the worst
Yeah.
possible thing that could happen to anybody, to any traveler, happened at the start of your trip.
Yeah, so I was set to fly to New York. I was flying into LaGuardia. We talked about on the last podcast that I was on how I had a really ratty setup. Had to fly Spirit to LaGuardia and then was going to get to JFK, and I was going to meet up with Danny the Deal Guru, have some dinner with him and his wife and their son and everything, and then move on to JFK, and it flew out at 10 o'clock at night on Singapore Airlines, the longest flight in the world, all that stuff. So it's like, noon. I'm about 11:30 noon, about to head to the airport, get my stuff packed up, look at my phone, got a text, you've been rebooked. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like maybe this is just, they changed of the plane or something and moved my seat around. Open up the email and it's like, you're now flying on Cathay on Sunday morning at, or Sunday early afternoon at noon or 12:30. And I'm like, what? And I keep reading and it says, we had maintenance issues that we couldn't get fixed in time, so we had to rebook you. So I'm like sitting here 2 hours to go to JFK. I'm like, do I even go to JFK? Do I want to go on this trip? The trip was only for 5 days. Now it's going to be 4 days. Is it worth flying 4 days to go for 4 days? Can I find something out of Detroit, that I fly out tonight and just cancel all that stuff? And then I had booked a separate connector flight from Singapore to Bangkok and then Bangkok back to Singapore because we were spending a couple of days there. So I'm going to miss that flight. And I'm dumb enough that I booked that. I got lazy and booked it as a round trip. So I'm going to miss my flight. I've lost my flight going back to Singapore too. So I have like 5 things I need to figure out. And if I go to JFK or if I go to New York, I got to overnight there too. It was just like a mass scramble. And I sat down for 30 minutes. I said, I'll give myself 30 minutes to see if I can figure out anything else before heading to the airport because I'll have a better shot getting there from New York. And of course I have the Cathay flight as the backup if I can't do any better. So that was like the mad dash before, all while I'm like, do I even want to do this anymore?
And I mean, the good news is you did get to fly Cathay again, and that was your return to the airline. And Joe wanted to know if they have soy sauce.
Yeah, they didn't have anything with rice in the meals. No meals that had rice. So I couldn't ask for soy sauce.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Did they
knew I
have
was
like
coming. They pulled
they
the
have,
cookers out.
One thing I like about Cathay business class is they have nice ramen for a snack, like mid-flight. So did you get that at least, or something like that?
No, the problem was like, because it was all last minute, I couldn't pick any meals or anything, ahead of time. And I had booked the cook with Singapore both ways. And I was looking forward to that. I had like a ramen type dish, set up and everything. So it was just kind of like, whatever, bring me what you got. I don't care at this point. But no, so I look for flights I'm hoping that like Lufthansa will be the way out, like, cause last minute booking out of Detroit to Frankfurt, and then I could hop on something else from there. Nothing available, nothing on Air France, nothing decent on Delta price wise. So I just get on my Spirit flight, and who would have thought Spirit was the most like secure of all the airlines I flew during during this mess? Got me out there on time. When I get to the airport, I start calling Singapore because I don't want to go to Singapore. That's not my end destination. I want to go to Bangkok. So now on this Cathay flight, I'm going JFK to Hong Kong to Singapore. I get there at like midnight. So then I'm like stuck in Singapore until I could get a flight to Bangkok at 6 or 7, 8 a.m. if I can find one. I'm like, can you just put me on the flight where I go to Hong Kong? And then there's a flight on Cathay to Bangkok that I could get. There's two of them. Can you move me to one of those? They wouldn't budge. Reached out to Cathay. They're like, I can't do anything. And I figured they'd say that, but they couldn't do anything. So I just start looking for other cash flights. Emirates had a flight that would work. It was $200. Ended up finding a ward space for 7,500 miles and $50. So I just hopped off in Hong Kong and got on that flight. So that was my plan. I wasn't worried about missing the leg because I booked them as 2 one-ways on Singapore, so I wouldn't lose my flight on the way home. So that was my plan when I got to JFK, or got to LaGuardia, and then I had to find a hotel for the night.
Man,
What a
first of
mess.
all, I know that you did your trip and came back, but I'm so stressed out hearing all that.
Yeah, it was like
I know it all worked out, but I'm still so stressed right now. But then the other thing is, I don't know why, I can't remember. I was wondering this the other day, whether you could skip lag internationally, but I guess you didn't get arrested. So,
Yeah.
and I know you weren't like trying to cheat the system or anything like that, but it's good to know that that worked, because when you were in Hong Kong, you didn't have to clear customs or anything, right? You just stayed within like transit
Yeah.
to whatever your next flight was or whatever.
Yeah, I had to scan my passport. It was all automated. It did say, like, when I scanned my ticket after passport, it said wrong ticket. It came up X, wrong ticket, and then it flipped to green and let me through. So I don't know if it was like trying to connect me to the Cathay ticket, and didn't want to take my Emirates at first, but I was definitely a little nervous about that, what was going to happen, or if they would be like, why do you have 2 tickets? What's going on here? Why'd you buy this last minute? All that stuff, because I didn't buy it until the morning of the Cathay flight, because I was like, I'm going to go to bed. I'm too stressed, and I kind of had some ideas lined up, but I'm like, I want to do this, sleep on it and get up and then decide what to do. But on the Spirit flight, because I bought the big front seat, it was like $100, good deal. I got free Wi-Fi, free drinks, free snacks, and of course the first class seat. So while I'm on there, I'm messaging with Hilton, and I'm like, hey, I have a free night cert that I just earned. I want to book it for the Graduate on Roosevelt Island, since they just purchased them a couple months ago. And I've been wanting to stay, and Shawn knows I've been wanting to stay there forever. Plus, I didn't want to go into the city and deal with all that crap. So got a room there, really cool hotel. If you like Roosevelt Island, or if you want to be like, go to Manhattan, but not be in Manhattan and deal with all that craziness, you can, take the tram across underneath the bridge. You can take the train over. There's a ferry boat, lots of options. One stop off the train and you're there, you're in Manhattan. So a really cool option. It was $80K a night. So I just used the free night cert.
Yeah, Roosevelt Island, we've been beating the drums about that for years, but people still don't know about it. Such a cool
Yeah.
spot, and it's so easy to get to from Manhattan. So even if it's just a day trip and you do the cable car over the water, that alone is worth doing. But exploring Roosevelt Island is neat, and always wanted to stay at that Graduate. It's a good reminder that the Hilton free night certs are eligible for those, because they have some really unique properties around the country.
Yeah, it's the second one I've stayed at, and I've been to like the rooftop bar. Almost all of them have a rooftop bar. I've been to the rooftop bars at like three or four of them. This one also has a really cool rooftop bar. Probably the best view of Manhattan. I would say like maybe Jersey City's a little bit better at sunset because you get the reflection off the glass. But if it's nighttime, I'd rather be on the Roosevelt Island side. You see the bridge, you see all of that. The downside is it isn't a part of the hotel, so you can't bill it back to your room. You can't use your credits there. They do have a lobby bar, restaurant that's pretty decent. But the cool thing is, since the resort fee includes a $15 credit, you get a $15 credit plus the two that you have for status. So I had $45 to use that one night. We got beers in the lounge downstairs and then headed upstairs to take in the view and see all of that. It's more like a club atmosphere. So that was fun, and I'm glad I got to check that off my list and avoided all those surcharge fees and crap that I had to pay on coming back. It was terrible.
So let's talk Asia. So Cathay, I mean, anything specific to say about the seat, about the experience? It's one of probably my favorite airline. Flown them quite a bit in all the different cabins, but I found even in economy, they're a great airline. But their business class, reverse herringbone, it's not like the new flashy seats, but it's one of those old products that I've always really liked.
Yeah, if you're gonna be hating though, Mark, I don't want to hear it. Okay, don't slander our airline. All right.
I actually preferred it to first class because they didn't bother me every 15 seconds. Like I had some room to breathe. I could watch my trashy movies, eat my food in peace, and the service was good. The seat's comfortable. It's kind of like everything else. I put it on the same, feeling as the American Airlines seat, comfort wise, all of that. The in-flight entertainment was pretty good. It was a little bit slow, like, moving it around and everything. It was dragging a bit, but you had to like really push hard. Other than that, that was my only real complaint. So, I had an appetizer that was like a pork dish that was really good, and then had a chicken meal type thing, and that was great. And I actually enjoyed the food pretty well, and no rice, no soy sauce, nothing like that, unfortunately, but had a couple drinks. Didn't really go crazy on it because I was still so stressed from everything. I was just like happy to be in a place and not have to worry about things for a bit. I should say I went to the AA lounge before, the one with the bridge that I hung out before the first class flight. And now that first dining's gone. It's just like a dining room you can sit in. There was like 15, 20 people in there. It was kind of crazy. The bridge section wasn't open yet. It didn't open until after my flight, I think like 2 p.m. So didn't get to hang out there, but had, some decent food there, a couple drinks. On the flight, didn't drink too much because I would be getting in after I took my Emirates flight. I'd land at like 11:30 p.m. Bangkok time. So I didn't want to be like all hungover and jet lagged and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take it easy. And it went pretty quick. It was like a 15-hour-ish flight and no complaints. Slept okay, as good as I'm going to sleep on a plane. And, landed in Hong Kong, went to the Centurion Lounge, had a drink there, just took some pictures, which is weird. Like all their lounges are on the same level. It seems like all open air. Nothing too fantastic. I think Cathay's lounge would have been better. I could have like snuck my way in there with my other ticket, but decided just to Centurion, let's go knock that out, see what it's like.
Cathay does have some other lounges that are not open air. Especially their first class lounges are nice, but a lot of the lounges, like you say, are open air, especially the third party lounges in Hong Kong. The Centurion is nice there, but that's the lounge where they throw the Centurion members in your face because they have a whole separate restaurant for Centurion card holders. And I always feel left out when I'm in there. And admittedly, I haven't spent a lot of time in that Centurion. I'd rather be in the other lounges, the Cathay lounges.
I just made the connection. So Emirates has like a fifth freedom flight between Hong Kong and Bangkok. I mean,
got all the nerds
cool.
all hopped up right now. We got a fifth freedom out of the deal for
that's right.
7,500 miles and $50. But no, I got lucky there. So I jumped on that. It was an economy. I didn't have anybody sitting next to me or on the other side of me. I was in like the 4 row, but I picked it because I booked it late and picked my seat late. I kind of knew where there would be openings. So sat there. It was depressing to walk in and see the staircase and not be able to go up it, but there was no awards or anything for business class. I was like 26 hours out when I booked it. So got that. I mean, full meal. It was only like a 2.5 hour flight. Had a full meal. It was kind of like what you get in first class here in the U.S., somewhat edible in parts and other parts inedible. So nothing I would write home about, but fell asleep. I was getting pretty exhausted by this point, but I fell asleep for like 30, 45 minutes on that flight before landing. So, of course, we get to Bangkok. I told all my buddies, I'm just going to bed. We'll do everything tomorrow. I lost a whole day. I want to wake up and be ready to go. But in Mark fashion, Shawn knows, got a little nap, got to the hotel at midnight and said, who wants to go out?
I mean, it is Bangkok after all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it even close? Like, does anything close down there? Like, I mean, I
No,
feel like
no,
that's the
not
place
really.
to do
I
it.
mean,
That or New York City, you know?
yeah. Well, everybody always says New York City, the place that never sleeps. City that never sleeps. Bangkok is 10 times more that than New York has ever been. A lot of New York shuts down at 3, 4 in the morning. Bangkok, anytime you can, go somewhere and have a drink or have fun. It is a crazy city. So got in, checked in the hotel. I was like, all right, let's go out for like a beer or two. And then ended up
10 beers later.
like, well, probably more than that. But so we end up closing down some bars, and then we end up at like this little, it was in a parking lot. They just had like a little food shack in like a big cooler or fridge and had beers in it. So we sit down there and we're just drinking beers, talking because it was, it's so loud inside all the other bars. There's a spot, and at 5 a.m., she looks at us and goes, can you guys go now? I want to go to sleep.
Poorly.
I felt so bad. I didn't even think about it. I think we were like the last 3 people there, maybe one other person. But we were buying quite a few beers and drinks, so I think she was okay with that. But she asked us, we left, and we're walking back to the hotel, and they're like, oh, wait, breakfast just opened. Let's go to breakfast. So 3 guys, and then our 4th buddy that was on the trip woke up and came down for breakfast. He had fallen asleep. Go to breakfast, and that's kind of a scene. I mean, the Hyatt Regency breakfast is a huge place. A lot to offer. Not my favorite breakfast. I don't know if you guys have ever stayed there, but they do have like a huge spread. You can get eggs, but I don't know. Asia, just their eggs are always very runny. I seen at least all the eggs I ate while I was there. And then they
That's
had
the way
like
you're
a waffle
supposed to eat
station.
eggs.
I
Asia,
don't
they know how to
know.
eat eggs there. Better quality.
I want-
They don't have the crap eggs we have here. And, well, I don't know about specifically in Thailand, but Japan has the good eggs. But yeah, runny eggs. That's the way to go.
Yeah, runny eggs in Singapore and in Thailand. That's what I got. But it had a good spread, and we of course were a bit loud and a bit American because we had been up all night. And now it's like 8 o'clock. We're like, hey, wait, the Lions are playing Monday Night Football. It starts in 30 minutes.
Oh, God.
So we head to the bar across the street. That's 24 hours, and we watched the football game.
They do call Bangkok the city of life. That's its name. So, you sucked all the life out of it that first night.
Did you get a feeling for like whether you were in touristy areas or like in, like did you feel like you were just like tourist in like touristy places the whole time, like especially when you're like bar hopping at like 3 a.m. or whatever, or do you feel like it's like kind of commingled with the locals and stuff?
I think it was a bit of both around the first night, first 2 nights, because the next night when we went out was New Year's Eve. We stayed mostly like in the Hyatt Regency area, so we didn't venture out too much from there, and it felt a bit touristy, a bit expatty, but there was also some locals walking around, and it gets seedy in parts, and that's Bangkok. You can get as seedy as you want, or you can try to stay away from it, but you're going to see it when you're walking the streets and everything. So it was a mix. I would probably lean a little bit more tourist than not, but it was fun, and it's unlike anything I've seen. I mean, the closest in America, I would say, not even Vegas. I'd probably say like New Orleans, Bourbon Street atmosphere is kind of what you get in Bangkok, but it goes nonstop, 24/7, and the people are just so gracious and fun. And so went to bed after the game, slept through the day mostly, and got up and went back out the next night, kind of hopped around. Wasn't too late of a night. We made it through New Year's. Everybody had those confetti poppers, like the whole street covered in confetti. And people were holding up Roman candles and shooting fireworks in between buildings. It was kind of wild. But I'll give, props to Bangkok. The streets are usually clean when you wake up in the morning. I don't know how they do it, but all that confetti was gone by the time we got up after breakfast the next day.
Well, you got up at like 2 p.m. probably, so no, I'm just kidding.
No, I didn't sleep at all. Like this whole trip, it was terrible. I'm waking up at like 3 a.m., going to bed at like midnight, 1 a.m. some nights, waking up at like 4 a.m. I've slept. It was like a series of cat naps throughout the entire trip. It was a bit exhausting. So the next morning, I probably woke up at like 5 or 6. We went down to breakfast at 7 or 8. And then we did we went out. It was New Year's Day at this point. We wanted to go to the temple on the river. And then Eric wanted to take us to Eric lives in Thailand. He's been there for a couple years now. So he doesn't live in Bangkok. He lives out in the Phuket area, a little bit north of there. And then our other buddy, Rob, goes there every year for several weeks around the holidays and stuff. So they wanted to show me the mall. Sean's always talked about Asian malls and how it's like a whole nother level of craziness there. So we did that on the river, did the river taxis, went to the temple, and then went to one of the rooftop bars overlooking the temple for sunset, which was pretty cool. But yeah, man, the malls are wild. And I think it was worse because it was New Year's Day, but it was like too much. I don't even know how you shop.
Was it was it a huge building, and like multiple floors type thing situation?
Yeah.
One of those?
Yeah. It was like a huge mall. The shopping area went one way, then you go downstairs to the food area, like hawker stall type things, and then little restaurants everywhere. We ended up eating at this one restaurant that was a Michelin rated restaurant or whatever. I guess like when they say they're a Michelin restaurant, it's not like a true star. It's just like Michelin came in and said it.
Just means they're in the book.
Yeah, they're in the book. So we had that, and it was really, really good, and ate some street meat, which I don't know how you don't get sick off of it. It's just sitting out there all day in like 90-degree heat, and then they cook it up and you eat it. But it was good. I don't know how chicken sits there for hours and hours and doesn't go bad. But
just don't ask. Pro tip, by the way, Phuket spelled Phuket. Make sure you remember that PH is a hard P.
Yeah.
So
don't say.
don't get yourself in trouble.
Of course he did. No, I mean, so Thailand mall culture in Asia is insane, but I think that there's a couple tips there for people because you talk about the street food. You can get a lot of that same food in malls. They have these enormous food courts, like you say, but it's not really like food courts like we're used to here. We have 5 or 6 places. Some of them have 30 places plus restaurants. So the dining is a huge part of mall culture there. But if you want something a little cleaner and safer, or you can go into these malls and get incredible fresh made dishes for $1, $2 sometimes. Maybe a little bit more now. I haven't been in a few years, but yeah. So the malls are incredible, and some of them are 7, 8 stories tall. You watch all the escalator. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. It's not just in Thailand; it's really all over Asia.
Yeah, and I got 5 seasoned chicken skewers, and then 2 bricks of sticky rice. I think it was like 200 baht, which is like under $6. So that was a great deal. But on the street, I got 2 chicken skewers, and it was like 30 baht. So you get it a bit cheaper. Eric even said in his town, which is like 20 minutes outside of the tourist zone there, it's like 5 baht for a chicken skewer. So it's super cheap. I mean, everybody knows Thailand's cheap, but it's crazy when you get there. We also did, we had to do the leg and foot massage. It was like 300 baht for an hour. Gave 100 baht tip. So you're looking at, under $12, like 10, $11, which is insane. I don't know. If I was staying there for a long period of time, I would just get one at least every day.
My expat friends who live in Asia, they go to Thailand for their medical stuff because it's so cheap. So, for those of you who are thinking of visiting Asia and are worried about getting sick or something, Thailand is the place to get sick because the medical stuff is so cheap there. So I also think that a lot of people do plastic surgery there. So, Mark, next time you go.
There we go.
You can come back looking fresh.
Get some Botox.
You talk about the tourist area of Bangkok first. I've stayed at the Hyatt Regency too. I think everything you said is pretty accurate as far as the area. And you have a tourist culture, right? You have the locals. But in Thailand, you have that expat culture, which is huge because there are so many expats there that it's almost like this third wheel. And I feel like that area specifically, a lot of those bars are owned by expats and expats there. Yeah. So you're getting like that local white person, which is a whole different thing. It's super interesting.
Yeah, and one of the places we went because Eric, that lives there, he's like, it's hard to find good pizza in Thailand. So when I come to Bangkok, I try to eat pizza. And Rob had been there for a couple of weeks, so he's like, all right, let's go to there's this place called The Game right down the street from the hotel, and it's just like an Irish pub, but it's owned by an American. So we eat there one day for lunch or whatever, and I got their chicken wings, and it was some of the best chicken wings I've had anywhere. I for whatever reason, I think the chicken in Thailand is amazing. But the buffalo sauce was really good, and they got the pizza in there. It actually tasted like decent pizza. He's like, you wouldn't imagine how many bad pizzas there are here. But he hadn't had it in like 6 months or whatever, so he's craving it. So if you are like, let's say you're on a long trip through Asia, and you end up in Bangkok after a couple of weeks, and you're kind of just missing like the comfort of home food, I think Bangkok is kind of cool that they offer that up because of all these expats that own things there. And it's actually really good food. It's cheap. And I can't, say enough of how great the people are. Probably my favorite people I've met anywhere. So gracious, so kind, in the spirit. Like, we went to Singapore after this, completely different feeling of the people, like more standoffish, more, I don't know, lack of a better word, uppity, I guess. Thai people are just like so excited to experience things with you. They're happy to serve you, and when you give them a tip, they're just so gracious and say thank you. Don't expect too much. It's just such a great culture, and kind of like, I don't know, I don't have any terms to say. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the feeling like they're the Midwest of Asia.
Of course you do. Of course you do. And you can parts of the Midwest, maybe not Detroit, maybe Minneapolis. They're the Minneapolis of Asia.
I'm talking like, yeah, just the kindness of it, like
Yeah.
how willing they are to like include you in things, and just everybody had like a good sense of humor, joke, laugh. Like everybody that was working anywhere had a lot of laughs and everything. It was interesting to see versus what you might expect, and you might expect like more of an uptight culture, and they were really loose, really fun. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to see the mix of the expats and then the Thai people who are so different, and yet they accept people, and that's why it's been such a popular tourist destination. You mentioned how good the chicken is. Here's a tip for people: be very careful when you order beef in Thailand because they use water buffalo, and it's not very good. It's not very tasty. It's not bad for you, or it doesn't taste bad.
Yeah.
But if you go to a fancy restaurant, they may actually have beef, but it has to be flown in because all their local beef is water buffalo. So if you're going anywhere, especially getting tacos or going places getting that Western style food, just make sure they're using beef or you're not going to get the flavor that you want. But tacos specifically, there's a lot of great Mexican food in Bangkok now, which 15 years ago, I did the same thing Eric did. I went all over Bangkok trying to find Mexican because we were traveling forever and I had a craving.
Yeah.
And it was so sad. And now there's like amazing food. So the food scene is really taken off.
They said do not get a burger or a steak when you're here. If you do want to get a steak, go to like the Conrad and eat at their restaurant because they'll fly it in. And they're like, it's still not going to be as good as you get at home. They said, burgers are best in the U.S. and steak is a little bit closer, but they're like, don't go to any regular restaurant and get that. It's just like, stay away.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it just doesn't taste that good. It's not beef. It doesn't taste like the beef you would expect it to. I don't know how else to say it. But when I backpacked around Thailand, I mean, that's what we were eating. You ended up
The
eating it
bacon's
enough.
not good either. Bacon's it's kind of bland. I don't know, not salty enough, not thick enough. We got it at the breakfast buffet. It just, that part of the meat, go stick with the chicken, man. The chicken is amazing.
So any other takeaways from Thailand before we talk about, Singapore and the other parts of your trip?
Yeah, I mean, I only had 2 days there. I wish I had a bit more. I don't know that I'd want to go back to Bangkok specifically. I'm probably like 10 years too old for that scene, or at least the part of the area we were in. It's just, it is a fun atmosphere. If you go, you should definitely check it out for a night or two. It's just like a go party scene. It's kind of crazy in that way. Bars open 24 hours, all those type of things, and you'll have a lot of fun. People are great, but if I went back, I'd want to go to the beach or get outside of it a bit and see that. I know they have beautiful beaches everywhere, amazing properties on them, and everything like that. So I'd go back to Thailand and do focus on that. I probably wouldn't spend much time in Bangkok, even though it does have a lot to offer in terms of dining and atmosphere. It just, I don't know that it has like the same a level of tourism that you wanted, like things to go see and do. There's some temples and stuff, but I just didn't get that gist, and maybe I just missed that portion of it. But it seems more like you go there to party and eat.
There is a lot more to it, but it's just like any big capital city as you get into it. And a lot of tourists do go there for that. So then you have that sort of atmosphere. It's also a big, dirty city. It's a messy city. It's full of life. I love all of those things. It's the reason I love going back to Bangkok. But I agree, it's not a place to spend a week or 10 days. It's not a place that I want to spend a ton of time, but it's a place I always want to go back to for a little bit and then go to other parts of Thailand. And just to reiterate what you said, the Thai people are so friendly. It's such a welcoming place. The prices are good. It's hot and humid and all that stuff, but yeah, an incredible place to visit, and it never disappoints. I've never met anybody who didn't enjoy going there.
Yeah, and if you stay at the Hyatt Regency, which was a Cat 2, I think it's a Cat 3 now, so not as good a value. I think there's a newer Hyatt house right around there that's a Cat 1 that looks pretty nice. But there's Mrs. P's Thai Massage is where we went. There's also Pam's, which is like right across the street there. That's a little bit cheaper at 250 baht. So those were great. I would probably go to P's. It's a little bit nicer. And Eric got an actual Thai massage, which I know Shawn tried once and, was crying through it. But he does them often, and he said she was one of the best that has ever done it. He was having some back pain, and she worked it out and stuff. So definitely check that out. You have to do it while you're there. It was a lot of fun, and I do want to go back to Thailand. I'd probably spend like a night in Bangkok just to take in the vibes and everything. But so this whole time, I didn't have a flight to Singapore.
I mean, that's my life. That's how I live my entire travel life. So it doesn't surprise me.
Because that did get canceled. I tried to just cancel it. I tried to call Life Miles, when I was in New York and have them cancel the first part of the flight because I was going to miss it. And they're like, we can't do that. And I said, well, then let's cancel the whole thing. And they're like, you can't cancel it because you're within 24 hours. You got to call back 24 hours after you miss the flight. We'll give you your miles back for like the $100 fee or whatever. So I keep checking. Normally, Bangkok to Singapore is like $100 or less flight. But since this was like right after New Year's and it was last minute, I couldn't find anything decent. It was like $300 plus, and that was the low cost carriers. So I ended up just booking on Singapore and economy. It was like $400. I just had to choke that down. It was pretty terrible.
Wow.
But I figured if I do low cost, I guess the one I was looking at, they check and weigh every bag, put it in the thing, and mine definitely would have been too big. So I'm just going to do Singapore, get there, whatever, put it on my Venture X Biz, and I'll wipe it away with points. But yeah, that was a mistake. Book one ways, people. Don't be an idiot like me, because if I would have booked 2 one ways, I would have still had my Thai flight that I booked with Life Miles, and it would have been fine. But since I missed the first portion, I had nothing, and I was left scrambling.
I generally book one ways, but I've done the same thing you did where I get lazy and I'm like, all right, and I booked something and luckily never had it go wrong. So that's crazy. You can often see flights if you do it ahead of time, from Bangkok to Singapore for $9 on AirAsia or Jetstar. It's crazy that price, but yeah. It's good that you have the ability though. And this is the point of why you collect these credits and the miles and points, and this crazy thing happens and you're able to eat it and even not, really eat it, use points to offset it. And that's all good.
Yeah, and I know some people are going to be like, hey, why didn't you use your travel protections from your credit card when you booked the flight and you got stranded in New York and for the hotel and stuff? I mean, hotels were like $500 a night at that point, last minute, 400 plus. And I didn't want to risk it and have to deal with it and not get that money. So I said, I'm just going to use a free night cert. I'll send in the stuff I used on, food and drink while I'm there and try to get that reimbursed, as well as my lift to the airport, try to get that reimbursed. So I figured that was a better way. And if I out it, oh, well, I would have spent it pretty much anyway. But if I do get it, great. It kind of lessens the cost, but I'd rather use the cert and not worry about it. This one, I couldn't do the same thing because, it was like a rolling thing that got me to this cancellation. So I just had to kind of eat it. Got into Singapore. We stayed at the Conrad, which I know you've stayed at before. And I thought you said they redone it, and I thought they had redone it. It did not seem updated in any way.
Oh, maybe. I had read that, but I also found out that there's 2 Conrads now. There's one on Orchard Road, and then there's the one down by Marina Bay. So you stayed at the one by Marina Bay, right?
I like the location, though. I thought the location was really good. It's definitely older. It feels older. It was $70K a night. So actually for Hilton, I don't feel like that's terrible. I'm paying like $50K for a Hampton Inn in any decent sized city, 50, $60K. So I think $70K is a good value there. Just don't expect much. The breakfast down in the restaurant was like chaos, the most chaotic thing I've ever seen. Just people everywhere, no space. It was horrible. The next day, we tried to go to the lounge for breakfast, a little bit more low key, not as busy. Hors d'oeuvres one night, we were up there in the lounge, just wanted to check it out, and it was like there was no space to seat. There were sitting couples with other couples and stuff. It just wasn't the greatest setup or experience. They did put us on the executive floor, bigger room, just older, but it was fine. I mean, a great location. You're right by the train. You can ride over to Marina Bay Sands very quickly, one stop away. You can get downtown in 2 stops. Go to the Hawker Center, or Hawker Market. It took us 2 stops. There's another one that I think was 3 stops away. So you can get around fairly easy. And I'll say I struggle with trains. I love their train system. I love that you just tap your credit card to go in, you tap your credit card to go out. You don't need to buy tickets, mess with any of that crap. You don't need to buy a card like Thailand. You have to get the card with your passport, and they track everything. It's crazy. With this, it was just so simple and so streamlined. and so easy to follow the directions and everything. Probably my favorite train system I've been in.
Yeah, I found Singapore to be very user friendly in general, and you definitely went at the right time of the year because if you go during the summer, it's just brutally hot.
It was still hot. It was still pretty hot.
I know. Can you imagine like in the summer?
So Joe had to cut out to some family stuff, but we're going to talk about Singapore. And I wanted to just mention before you go into everything you did in Singapore, a lot of people say Singapore is like Asia light. It's a really good place to travel to Asia for the first time because vast majority of people speak English. Everything's in English. You talked about the train system, all of that. And it's just a super easy place to travel for somebody who might be like intimidated by going someplace new. I know that's not you, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, when you start in Bangkok, I mean, it's like it doesn't get any more immersive than that. But yeah, if we had started in Singapore, I don't know. I kind of like getting the shock of Bangkok, which wasn't all that shocking. Like, I mean, if you've been to like New Orleans, you've been to Vegas and stuff, like you get that environment, you kind of understand what it's going to be like. But it definitely was like to another level unexpectedly. And then you go to Singapore, and maybe we caught it because of the holidays and stuff. It was like desolate. There wasn't many people anywhere. Most of the trains we get on, had plenty of seats for people. I will say, like Friday night, it started to pick up a bit, but like all day Thursday, no issues getting around. No, it was easy, which felt a bit strange coming from Thailand, where riding trains was difficult. The boat system was difficult. I forgot to mention this, but Thai people, it's kind of chaos when they have to have order of like lines and tickets and stuff. Like when we went to the temple, all these people get off the boat and then the ticket places are left, but they're all trying to cram in to get in. But then you have to like fight through people to get to the ticket and then fight back into the line. It was like an horrible experience. And you're waiting 30 minutes for the boat to come up because there's like 4 boats waiting to dock at the same time. It just not well organized at all.
And Singapore is the complete opposite. Everybody's waiting in line. You go to ride a bus and they have like lines on the floor for people to wait in an orderly fashion. Japan's very similar to this as well, where people just listen and everything's organized. I imagine it is the holidays because usually their public transport's pretty busy there, but it is so well worn. It's very safe there too. You can go anywhere in Singapore and not really worry. I've been to weird places in the middle of the night. One time we got stranded because the train stopped running and we had to, I don't know, we got stranded in the middle of the city at 2 a.m., not knowing where we were. And it was never a problem because that really is Singapore. And it allows you to kind of enjoy it in a different way. But I can't imagine 2 completely different cities than Bangkok.
Yeah, it was definitely shocking. Oh, one more tip I forgot to bring up. I don't know, we keep going back to Thailand, but if you do like use the, what is it, Grab or Bolt or whatever the car service is, the Uber version there, if you order a van, it's like a huge like a party van that shows up. And I think we paid $18 to get back from like across the river from the temple to the hotel because it was so hot. But Eric's like, I'm going to order the van because they always have the AC cranked all the way up. With a car, it's hit or miss. And it's like spacious. Like we each had our own row in there for 4 people. It was crazy. So definitely worth the increase in price a bit if you're hot and a bit exhausted. Very comfortable seats. It's like kind of got like the disco going on with lights and everything. So definitely order those. I don't even think Rob had known that. He was like, oh, okay, this is a really good tip. So I wanted to share that. Forgot to bring it up earlier. But yeah, so we're at Conrad. The first night we get in like 7 p.m. So we go to Hawker Center. I'm probably going to, murder this, but Lau Pa Sa, it was like the one closest to the hotel. So hopped on the train, quick went in there, had to get the chicken rice, the famous dish there. So tried that and got some dumplings and some bao and some other things and kind of just walked around. And it was busy. Everything else was dead, but you got to the Hawker Center and it like every table was full. It was cool to see.
It's funny because the chicken rice to me is fairly pedestrian. I like it. It's good, but there's so much better stuff at Hawker Centers to eat everything, so I've ever done that. And here's a tip for people. Sugarcane juice is amazing. I don't know if they have it in other countries, but that's the first place I ever had it, in a Hawker Center. And they basically grind down the sugarcane fresh. It's the most amazing thing. And it is so refreshing on a very hot, steamy day where it's humid and pretty much every day in Singapore. Nothing like quenches your thirst like sugarcane juice, which is not something you would think, but so good.
Yeah. No, I didn't know about that. So we didn't try it, but we sampled some things from around it and kind of were like exhausted from the travels and stuff. So we did that, walked around a little bit, went back to the hotel, kind of crashed for the night. And then the next day we got up early, did breakfast, and then headed out. Wanted to go to Marina Bay Sands. The plan was like to go to one of the rooftop bars for lunch to have a drink and stuff and just check out the view. I think the Italian restaurant has the best view from the top. The rest are like kind of overlooking the pool and stuff. There's just like a little bar area and then another restaurant. If you want to go up there, I would get reservations. But my buddy Tyler, as we're like walking around, another cool mall with kind of like a Venetian gondola boat type thing in the middle of it, river. The casino's there. We didn't go into the casino. I didn't have my passport with me, so we couldn't go check that out. But it looked really nice. I'm sure you've been in. Have you been in the casino right there?
Just a quick walkthrough. So I've walked through the whole property, but been there with my family, so didn't have the opportunity to go do anything. And it's super weird. They do check your passport. Locals have to pay I think it's around 100 USD just to get in there. And it's sort of Singapore's way to keep locals from gambling, meaning we want the tourist gambling dollars, but we don't want all the problems for our locals, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
I said super interesting like the third time in a row. Sorry.
Yeah. No, super duper interesting. Super duper interesting. No, that is. I mean, it's not a bad idea if you're trying to keep your people from gambling problems, which we see here in America all the time. So we were walking through there, and Tyler's like, "Hey, if you want a really good view of the bay, go to level 33. It's like a beer brewery bar. They have food too, but they brew their own microbrewery, brew their own beer. It's around the corner from there." So we walked out, and it's like in a financial office building type of thing. And when you walk in, right to the left is the elevator just for the restaurant. Go up to the 33rd floor. I know, shocking, called level 33. Go to the 33rd floor. They have outside seating, inside seating. We sat outside, and then you get a view of the hotel, the whole bay, and everything to the left side. When you're looking at it, the hotel's on your right side, the bay's in front of you, and the whole city to the left. So that would be a great place to have drinks at night. When the sun's setting, you could probably see even a little bit of the gardens lit up and stuff, and the hotel would be all lit up. But that was really cool. We ended up sitting there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just talking and taking in the view. And it hadn't rained yet, so it wasn't too hot, and the sun was being blocked by the clouds. So it was just really enjoyable experience, especially coming from the craziness of Bangkok and how loud and everything was. Just to sit there and like kind of tranquility was surprising. So that's what we did during the day, and then went and walked around Chinatown, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Singapore is a lot of mixtures, and there's a lot of native Indians, and there's a lot of native Chinese. And so you have these cultures sort of mixed, and English is the language that brings them together, which is why so many people speak English. But the Chinatown there is amazing and vast, and there's Little India. There's so many interesting neighborhoods within Singapore. And like I said, it's just easy to get around. It's just a great place to visit. And you didn't do this, but I just want to throw this out there. I think it's one of the best family travel destinations in the entire world.
Yeah.
I know it's very far from here for people to bring it, but I have brought my kids there over the years. And from the Singapore Zoo to Universal Studios and Resorts World to a million other things, it's an incredible family place too. So just about anybody can find what they want to do there and have a good time.
Yeah, I agree. I think, super safe. I felt super safe in Thailand too. Definitely a different vibe with some of the stuff that's going down on the streets, but I never felt unsafe at all. I don't know, there's parts of it I'm sure that are great for families and everything, but we didn't have enough time to really see all of Bangkok. So I do feel bad about that. Losing the full day definitely hurt there. We're supposed to be 3 days in Bangkok and then a couple days in Singapore. And don't go to Asia for 4 or 5 days. It's just stupid. It's the only way I could work it into the schedule and go when I had some friends out there. So I wanted to see them. And it just kind of was unique that I had to be back on the weekend before school started back up and everything. So crammed it in. I'm glad I did, but I wouldn't recommend it. Go for 2 weeks and take your time with everything. But yeah, Singapore just felt like the safest place I've ever been, I guess you could honestly say. I mean, when they have signs that say you're going to be fined $10,000 for your first time littering, no wonder everything's spotless. They're not allowed to chew gum either.
Yeah, and here's something that a lot of people don't understand, but this is something that was told to me by people who live there. I had friends that were Americans that lived there for quite a long time, is that it's kind of like a dictatorship there, except they
Yeah.
call it a benevolent dictatorship in that they take care of the people and people have a really good life, but you're dealing with some, some harsh rules and stuff like that. So you got to live within that. Of course, as a tourist, follow the rules. You don't want to be on the wrong side. They cane people in Singapore. So keep that in mind,
Yeah.
I guess. But you say that, but you
Don't
never
bring
really
drugs.
feel that.
Don't do drugs. You can't
Yeah.
even bring like NyQuil in, I don't think. I think that's not allowed. Or maybe that's Thailand. I don't know. One of the two, even that type of stuff is on the edge. But there was a story that Eric had shared. Somebody was flying from Bangkok to somewhere, I think, and they got rerouted to Singapore. Wasn't supposed to go there. Had drugs on them. Ended up being hung. A little bit later. So definitely don't. If you're into drugs, whatever. Don't. I mean, I wouldn't do them anywhere in Asia because there are pretty strict rules on it. But definitely don't do it in Singapore. So
What's
that's
crazy though,
yeah,
Mark, while you say that, having gone to Thailand for many, many years and having
Yeah.
not been there for about 5 years, is they legalized a certain drug in Thailand and it is everywhere. I've heard. I have not been there, but
Yeah.
I've heard that you can just see
Cannabis.
it everywhere.
Can we say
Yeah.
that? Can we say Canada?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So that's legalized now, but other stuff gets sketchy. So yeah, we saw shops. I didn't really smell anywhere. Like you go around Vegas and stuff, you smell it everywhere, but I didn't really smell it anywhere there. But I did see some stores and shops and everything. So that's a newer change, which is interesting to see. And I think they're bringing gambling to Thailand too. I think they just passed that they want to build a casino in Bangkok. So that's another thing that they're kind of progressing on a bit. But yeah, Singapore just felt the cleanest city I've been in. It was very quiet, very safe. It felt like Chinatown is massive, much bigger than I thought, just like restaurant after restaurant after restaurant. And they had their own little hawker center that we walked through. It was more like a shop. And then the second floor was a food type of thing, but it was like a flea market, what we'd call it here in the Midwest, type of setup. Very traditional feeling foods and stuff. And so you have like a ton of options there. And Matt, who I was there with, had gone to Little India the time before. He said it was really beautiful, like tapestries and colors and a very unique little city. So we went to Chinatown because he had already been there. I said, well, let's go somewhere you haven't been to. And the beef jerky, I don't remember what it's called, but they had like these stores with all these little bricks of beef jerky and stuff that were just insane. They're awesome.
So much to do there. I know we're so long here, so we got to hear your quick take on Singapore Airlines business
what?
class. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to preface this because I've gotten into fights with some people over the years. Singapore Airlines business class, I've flown on it quite a few times, but it has a very small footwell. And I'm just saying this before you talk because I don't think this was your issue. But if you get a bulkhead seat, you don't have the footwell. It's wide open, and it's like night and day. And I've had people like die on the hill that those seats are good and you have to convert the seat into a bed. I'll let you explain all the nonsense of it, but I agree it's not my favorite
They still
seat.
wouldn't be bad. They still wouldn't be good. Still wouldn't. Nope. No way. The worst. The actual, like if it was a 4-hour flight, great. If it's an overnight flight, sucks. Let's just say that. I don't care. People can fight me to death on it. I don't care if you have a bulkhead or not. It sucks. So I was supposed to have a bulkhead coming out, didn't get it, whatever. Couldn't book it on the way back. So just had a regular one. Wasn't too worried about it because I am a side sleeper. If you sleep on your side, the footwell, you can maneuver it. You can bend your knees, all that stuff. The bad thing is, even if you are on your side, you can only lay on one side, really. The other side feels weird because it's curved. Like your feet can only wrap, like almost like you're spooning the footwell. It only spoons one way well. The other way is a little bit weird. So I'll say, like, we went to the lounge before. Good food in the lounge. The Chris Silver or Silver Chris, whatever it's called, the lounge there. Very big, very nice. Had everything you want. Had some good food and everything. Got on the flight, walk in, and the seat is wide. I don't even know. Do you think it's wider than Cathay First? I feel like it's wider than Cathay First. It's a really wide leather seat.
Not as wide. I mean, Cathay First is 3 across, but it's a very comfortable wide seat as far as when you're sitting there. It feels like a big throne.
Yeah, it's the biggest business class seat I've been in. Like Cathay is probably like 50%. No, it's probably 1.5 Cathays, I would say, width-wise. You really do feel comfortable. And if the seat was that and it worked like a regular seat, it would have been great. Like if they just didn't try to recreate how you sleep on a plane. But the fact, and this is the stupidest, I don't want to curse, but you might have to be this. This is the stupidest I've ever seen in my life. That to make a bed, you have to stand up and grab the handlebar from behind, like you're in an SUV and you're folding down for cargo space. You have to fold the seat on itself. So you go from a comfy, big, luxurious seat to sleeping on the plywood that keeps the seat comfortable in the front. You're laying on the hardest material possible. Who designed this? They're an idiot, because this is not a thing that you want to lay on. Imagine you're sitting in your back seat of a luxury SUV, comfy. Then you fold it down and go, that's where you're going to sleep. That's what this is. It's idiotic. I don't understand it. I don't know who thought it was okay. I don't care if you can ask for a second padding thing to put down. It doesn't matter. It sucks. And then on top of that, you have to stand up and move everything all around and reconfigure it just to turn it into a bed. Sucks. And then when you want to get up, you have to move around and throw everything around and try not to wake people up and push it back up. That sucks. It was horrible.
Yeah, I've been on a few different products where you have to convert it into a bed, and in this day and age where you have plenty of good seats that automatically fold down into beds, it's better. Like I was gonna say, you didn't ask for a mattress pad, but apparently you already addressed that. 2 of them still didn't make a difference. I don't remember them being so hard. I don't remember particularly loving the seat. I'm not somebody who sleeps well, even on first class, business class things. I mean, I do sleep, but it's not like I can settle in like it's a real bed. But yeah, and I had the bulkhead on my long flight. I've flown it in Asia quite a few times, but like you said, it's a shorter flight, so you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, you're just sitting in the seat. It's my favorite business class seat ever. And if you're in seat mode, watching a movie, eating, whatever, awesome. That's what annoys me. That if it would have just went down into a full bed, and that's what I ended up doing the second time I went to sleep after eating the second meal, I just reclined as far as possible and like scrunched down into a little ball and propped my head up in the corner and just laid on it normal, and I slept better, which is sad to say.
That's what my dad did. It was so funny when I took him in Singapore suites and in Cathay first class like years ago. He wouldn't lay flat in the bed. He wouldn't put the seat into a bed position. He would just like recline it and go to sleep sitting up. And I'm like, dude, you have a bed. I got you a bed on the plane. Go sleep. And he's like, no, I'm more comfortable like this. So he would just be like the old man sitting there napping in his chair. But hey,
yeah, I'll have this week. I'll have a whole like play-by-play, hour-by-hour type of write-up what I was doing, and just like my annoyances of it and everything. And of course, there was a baby. We got stuck in the second section. Another tip I'll say: if you book in the front section where there is no bassinet, because we got like 2 rows behind that, and it was a baby scream for 7 straight hours. That was a bit rough. So we were dealing with that as well. I mean, headphones in, it wasn't like unbearable, but it was definitely annoying. So we're dealing with that. I'll say the service, phenomenal. Best service, better than Cathay. They were always on point. It was up there with like Cathay first, in my opinion, with how on the ball they were. How, when I went to ask a drink, they knew where I was sitting. On Cathay, she had to follow me back and stuff. Like everybody remembered everything. Quick service, ready to go. And there were so many people working that there was always somebody like right near where you were, and if you needed help, which I'll say, like, if you felt like they had double the flight attendants as everybody else. But yeah, and the food was really good too. I mean, there was one chicken skewered thing that was hit or a miss, but I got the lobster. It was a little bit bland, but it was pretty good. The potato on it was awesome. I got strawberry waffles and whipped cream and butter and stuff, and they had the best ice cream dessert I've ever had. The sesame seed pie wasn't my favorite. Cake, sesame seed cake was not my favorite. The flight attendant thought it was the greatest thing ever. I don't know, but I thought everything else top notch. The bed, terrible. So if you're more into soft product than hard product, you probably will like it. If you're more about all I want to do is sleep, avoid at all costs, I would say.
it could be a shock flying on those airlines if you've only flown on US-based airlines overseas, because the overseas routes tend to get the oldest, surliest flight attendants with the most seniority, and in my opinion, they just aren't very good usually. So then you go into something like Singapore, and they're better than just even the average airline. But yeah, the service is just so incredible, and you don't feel like you're putting them out. They are there to serve you and to provide a great experience, and it's a great airline. And definitely deserving of the reputation. Like you said, the seat aside, the bed aside, whatever, it's deserving of that top tier airline reputation.
Yeah, and I think that they're reconfiguring it. I think that's what in the next couple of years, they're going to be coming out with a new business class product. As soon as they get rid of that, I would fly them in a heartbeat. I loved every other aspect of it. It was a good time. I brought my little fan. If you fly, bring your little $8 USB fan from Amazon. It's a lifesaver. That was a big thing on all my flights. Even the worst was the Singapore economy flight. It was so hot in there that I still had it like propped up, blowing on me just right like underneath the entertainment system, because I wouldn't have survived otherwise. I don't know what they were doing, but it was warm. It was a bit better in Cathay and Singapore in business class. It wasn't as warm, but it was still a little bit warm. So it was nice to have that airflow because you don't have the nozzles that you can adjust. But yeah, and then I got back to JFK and I had to hop on an Uber to go to LaGuardia or to Newark, because the last flight out was on United. Luckily, I got that for 6,000 points and a couple bucks on with Life Miles. But the Uber from the airport, Uber, Lyft, everything was the same. Was $160 between the two airports. New York, they added all those new fees and tolls and all that stuff. I don't know if that added to it if I got hit for those, but it was insane for an hour, $160.
You know what they say? Every good trip ends at Newark Airport. So I think it was a success.
Yeah, I was stuck there for like 2 hours. I'm like, this is terrible. I just want to get home. But I was glad to get out and get home and spend that night in the bed. I think that got me right really quick versus staying in another hotel, not sleeping well. So I was able to do that. My buddy Matt is still stuck in New York. He was flying to St. Louis, but they got dumped on snow on Sunday morning, and he couldn't find any flights out on Saturday. So his flight got canceled Sunday, and then his flight today got canceled too. And this is Monday, so he's not going to get home till Tuesday. So I wouldn't have had to worry about that. It didn't snow here, but that was like a big fear. That's why I wanted to try to get out as soon as I could in case, something did happen, or if I missed it, at least I'd fly out Sunday anyway. So that was the goal. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Singapore, I can't wait to go back. I walked through the gardens, saw the trees. That was amazing at night. A really cool experience. Next time I'd like to pay to be up in the walking area, so you can see it from up there. And I definitely want to have dinner at the top of the hotel, overlooking it one of the times. So I can't wait to go back. And I know a lot of people are like, Singapore's Singapore or whatever. I didn't find that the case at all. Maybe the nightlife isn't quite there, especially when you're talking about Bangkok, but I thought it had a lot to offer.
Yeah, it's a great city, and I do recommend walking on the Gardens of the Bay, that walkway at night. We did that. It's great. Just while you mentioned it, so many great things. Any other final takeaways? We're way long here, so yeah.
Yeah, you got to get to editing this. I got to send you the videos and everything. It was 4 days. Definitely not enough to see what I wanted to see. Gives you an impression, gives you a taste. It was as good, if not better, than I was hoping for, except for the flight home. I really was looking forward to that, thinking it was going to be a better sleeping experience, but made it through. Ended up still going to the game Sunday night, so that was cool. I was able to make do. But yeah. Oh, another thing I'll say is the airport experience is so much better, at least for sure in Singapore. Bangkok was very quick. I know that can get backed up. You did have to talk to an agent in they didn't ask any questions, but you had to do your fingerprints and everything. Got through pretty quick. Singapore is like a whole nother world. You have to fill out the form before you land online. Very easy. Couple questions. And then you just scan your passport. They scan your face. You walk through. Same when you're going back out. You scan. You don't even go through security till you get to the gate, which was a bit weird. Not efficient at all. But hey, it's better for us. They did check my ID and passport 4 times within 15 feet of each other. 4 different people. I don't know if you've dealt with that, but I'm like, did you not see him do it or her do it? Why are we doing this again? This is I'm not even lying. 4 times, Shawn.
That reminds. I've never had that happen in Singapore. They've always been great about immigration too. Like back in the day before the technology, they would have everything staffed so that there would never be more than like 2 people in line at each window. So it's great to hear they do that. That reminds me of like India. In India, they do that. Like I remember I was boarding a flight in Bangalore, and I'm not even talking about in the airport. They check everything a million times. But from getting on the jet bridge to walking through the door of the airplane, they had 4 people check your ID and your boarding pass, as if somebody was going to smuggle themselves into the jet bridge in between. Sometimes. And then the security at the gate, a lot of airports in Asia do that. And it's not my favorite thing, but there's goods and bads to it, but you do have to factor that in, know that you have to go through that,
my buddy Tyler, who grew up in Singapore and lived there as an adult and is moving back there soon. He's like, how else do you keep unemployment down?
Exactly. Yeah, you'll see that there though. You'll see older people, at McDonald's, they clean up. In fact, when you go to a fast food restaurant there, you don't pick up your food, like your trash and stuff, and throw it away, because there is a person there that does that they clean the dining room, they pick up the food, and it's kind of disrespectful to throw your own stuff away because you're giving them a job, and a lot of the older people there have those types of jobs, and it's part of that communal sort of thing there.
That reminds me, Ed, did you notice in Thailand, every time you go in the bathroom, there's an older lady in there cleaning? Like, no matter where you are, what bathroom you go into, there's somebody in there cleaning at all times. It's crazy. It's always a woman.
Crazy. And the takeaway of all of this is, if you only have 4 days to go to Asia or 5 days, you should do it. I've done similar trips. I've obviously done longer trips, but if you have just a few days to travel, then travel. It's not going to be everything you always wanted to see, but think about all the cool things that you did. And now you have a basis for going back. And that's why people should do it, instead of thinking it over. Oh, maybe I should do this, but I can't do it because of this or because of that. If you have the miles and points, you could do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully for 2 weeks. 4 days of flying for 4 days of fun it's tough. It's tough.
So that's going to do it for this show. Let us know in the comments everything we talked about, any specific things you love Singapore business class, any of the things Mark did, any tips for Bangkok or Singapore, your takes on going to these places, quick trips to Asia, that sort of stuff. Leave a comment. We have our news show, 20-Minute Travel, on Wednesday. We'll have all the news for miles and points this week coming up then. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
Have a good week, everybody. Singapore Airlines sucks. Their seat sucks.
You're banned. You better never go back to Singapore. They're going to cane you.
Yeah.